Are you still there? I figured. I saw the way you tilted your head, eyes still on the screen but your mind, kind of floating somewhere else. Maybe you were about to click away, but then a question popped up. Have you ever felt like you never really grew up? And if you're thinking, oh great, another motivational podcast? Well, no. I don't have a microphone, no fancy filters, no curated wardrobe. But I do have feathery external gills that flutter like they're always listening. And I live deep beneath murky water in a city you've probably only seen in travel photos. The kind with colorful boats and mariachi music echoing through every corner. I'm an axolotl. That little creature some humans call a water monster, or that salamander that never grows up, or simply the eternal kid. Not the nicest nicknames, but hey, not entirely wrong either. You see, I live in water, always have. I was born with gills, fins, and a tail, and I never gave them up. While my distant cousins, the more serious salamanders, shed their skin, ditch their gills, and crawl onto land to do grown-up things. I stayed behind. Not because I'm lazy, not because I'm weak, but because being myself felt right. Sound familiar? Maybe you live in a world that constantly tells you, grow up, get a job, settle down, do something meaningful with your life. But deep down, you're still holding on to something soft, something small, something not quite ready. I get that. So do I. Every morning when I wake up, well, I never really sleep since I don't have eyelids. I don't think about proving anything. I just swim, grab a snack, regrow the leg a little shark took a bite out of yesterday, then swim some more. I'm not trying to be spectacular. I'm just being. Oh right, about that regrowing part. Did you know? I can regenerate my limbs. Lost an arm? It comes back. Lost a tail? No big deal. Lost part of my brain? Yep, that too. Sounds like a superpower, right? But for me, it's just part of surviving in a world full of sneaky predators, toxic trash, and a shrinking lake that's now just 2% of what it used to be. And I'm still here. I live in a body no one calls majestic. A body some scientists label as larval. But I reproduce. I regenerate. I adapt. Honestly, I might be doing better than some of those so-called grown-up species out there. So, who's really mature? Truth is, I don't think being grown means wearing an Apple Watch or padding your resume with proactive, deadline-driven, or team player. Maturity to me means knowing where you are and how to grow back what you've lost. It's not about rushing to change just to fit into a mold the world made without asking you first. Maybe you're still figuring out how to live with yourself. Maybe you're still carrying a kid inside your chest. And guess what? That's nothing to be ashamed of. I'm an axolotl, the child who survived the age of humans. I used to be a god. No, not the Marvel kind. No thunder hammers, no flying powers, no sunglasses and black leather jackets. I was a quiet god, a runaway. And honestly, I'm not proud of it. Long before phones had cameras and kids got dropped off at school in SUVs, the land I came from was ruled by an empire called the Aztecs. They didn't have TikTok, but they did have stories wilder than anything on your For You page. One of them said that the sun couldn't rise without sacrifice. Not skipping breakfast kind of sacrifice, but real, blood sacrifice kind. The first gods gave up their lives so the sun could move, so the world could spin. They called it duty, glory. But me, Axolotl, I didn't want that. I was scared. I wasn't ready. I watched the other gods step into the fire, turned to ash, and I ran. I changed into corn, then agave, then, finally, a tiny creature, hiding beneath the water, the axolotl. I didn't just run once, I ran 3 times. You might be thinking, wow, what a coward. And, yeah, maybe, but be honest, haven't you ever wanted to run too? Ever felt like life was just one endless scroll of deadlines and expectations, and all you really wanted was to turn into a little fish and disappear for a while? I know that feeling. I've lived my whole life inside it. I thought, if I became something no one noticed, in a place no one visited, I'd be left alone. But then my brother, Quetzalcoatl, the one humans later drew with dragon wings and divine fire, found me. He spared me, didn't kill me, but he didn't let me return either. If you've chosen darkness, he said, then live there forever. So I became a creature forever stuck beneath the surface, never aging, never changing form. And sometimes I wonder, if I had walked into that fire, would I have been remembered, worshipped like my brother, or would I still be forgotten, like now? But here's the twist. The moment I vanished from the gods' world, I found my place in yours. Humans grew curious. Why doesn't it grow up? They asked. Why can't it regrow limbs, tails, even part of its brain? They brought me into labs, mispronounced my Nahuatl name, and started learning from me, like I was some professor in the University of Biology. Pretty ironic, huh? A creature who ran from fate ended up being the key to someone else's survival. And you know what? I think you might be like me too. Maybe you've dodged an opportunity, let fear hold you back. Maybe you did something you later called a failure, something that made you feel small or unworthy. But then, time passed, and you uncovered something within yourself that others didn't have. A different view, a rare ability, a faint light that never quite went out, and you realized maybe that detour wasn't weakness. Maybe it was the turn you had to take to find who you really are. I used to be a god. I'm not in the sky anymore, but I'm still here, under these murky waters, with delicate feather-like gills and eyes that never blink. Quiet, watching, learning how to live with myself without ever needing to become someone else. And you tell me, is that really something to be ashamed of? I'm the Peter Pan of the animal kingdom, and no, I don't wear green tights or fly through windows at midnight, but I really am a kid who never grew up, not in spirit, but in biology. You remember me, right? That little creature beneath the water, gills pulsing like ferns in slow breath, frozen forever in the shape of my first swim. And if you think I'm being metaphorical, I'm not. I literally never grew up. In the animal world, it's almost a given. You're born, you grow, you transform. You change shape to survive, adapt, conquer new ground. Birds get feathers, deer grow antlers, butterflies break free from their cocoons, salamanders shed their tails and walk the earth. Me? I do none of that. I stay still. I keep my larval body. I live my whole life underwater, with a soft tail and gills that look like coral, breathing gently. Science calls me neotenic, a creature that holds onto childhood traits forever. Sound familiar? Maybe you don't have gills or swim around all day, but I think you know the feeling. That quiet moment when everyone around you starts growing up, talking about health insurance, tax returns, and retirement plans, while you're still hanging on to your old sticker collection or swinging by the park just to hop on a swing for fun. It's not that you can't change. It's that you don't want to trade who you are just to fit into someone else's version of what it means to be grown. And if anyone's ever looked at you and said, "Aren't you a little too old for that?" Well, hello. You're not alone. I'm a creature that lives 100% of my life as a child, and I'm doing just fine. You want to hear something wild? Not growing up, for me, isn't a flaw. It's a strategy, an evolutionary decision. See, I live in these large lakes in Mexico, surrounded by dry land with no moist soil to crawl onto, no big predators lurking in the water. In that environment, staying young is the best way to survive. If you've ever been told you need to change, you need to step out of your comfort zone, just remember, some of us stay, because that's the safest place to heal, to grow, to exist. And that doesn't make us less than anyone else. In fact, I find it kind of funny, because even though I look like a little kid, I can do things most grown-ups can't. I can regrow a leg. I can regrow a tail. I can even regrow a part of my brain. While humans are still figuring out how to bounce back from emotional setbacks, I'm literally regrowing what was lost. And you know what's most fascinating? We may not be so different. You used to be able to bounce back like I do. When you were small, you fell, and you learned to walk. You babbled, and you learned to speak. You healed from wounds you didn't even have the words to describe. But as you grew up, you forgot how to do that. I didn't. I never forgot who I was, because I never stopped being me. So if someone asks, when are you finally going to grow up? You can smile and say, when I feel it's time. Right now, I'm exactly where I need to be. I'm an axolotl. I'm Peter Pan. Not because I fly through clouds, but because I chose to stay underwater, where I can heal, where I can shine, and where I never have to pretend to be someone else just to be accepted. And if you're swimming through a world that keeps pushing you to change, remember, there's a little creature whispering from the bottom of the water. You're not wrong for holding on to the part of you that's not ready to grow up. I shatter, but I don't disappear. I know that sounds like something you'd read on a coffee mug, like, you're stronger than you think. But for me, it's a biological fact. One I've carried since the very first time I sank into the cool, muddy waters of Lake Xochimilco. Remember? I told you I never grew up, that I chose to stay in my childlike form, but that doesn't mean I'm fragile. On the contrary, I might just be one of the most indestructible creatures you'll ever meet. Imagine this. It's a decent day. No one steps on you, no predators in sight, and the pollution levels are not immediately fatal. You're swimming around and whack. You lose a leg. For you, that might mean a major injury, months of rehab, hospital bills, and lots of ibuprofen. For me, I take a few days to rest, and then I grow it back. Not just a lump of tissue, a fully formed leg, joints, tendons, bones, nerves, blood vessels, everything. No scars, no trace it was ever gone. And it doesn't stop there. I can regrow my tail, part of my eye, a chunk of spinal cord, and, get ready, even a portion of my brain. Sounds like comic book stuff, right? Maybe. But I'm living proof of something humans only dare to dream about. Real healing. Not just recovery, but returning to exactly who you were before the damage. And I've wondered, if a tiny little creature like me can do that, then maybe humans, with your technology, your empathy, your long history of resilience, maybe you should be able to do even more. But here's what I've seen from beneath the surface. Most people don't lack the power to heal. They lack the belief that they deserve to be whole again. Someone gets their heart broken, and they convince themselves they're unlovable. Someone fails in their career, and they label themselves as a failure. A child grows up in a house with no warmth, and they grow into someone who believes they're unworthy of happiness. They break, and then they disappear from themselves. But me, I break too. I hurt. Sometimes, only half of me is left drifting in dark water. But I don't disappear. I wait. I give my body time. I let the cells begin again. No rushing, no fear. And then I grow back. Quietly, surely, completely. You don't need to grow back a limb. I get that. But maybe you need to regrow something else. Trust, self-respect, the peace you once had, but lost somewhere along the way. And if you've ever thought you can't, remember this. I don't have magic genes. I'm not a mutation. I'm just a creature who learned how to trust the process of coming back to life. Maybe you have that ability too. Maybe no one ever taught you how to listen to yourself. The way I've learned to listen to the tiny pulses of blood echoing through the limb I've just begun to regrow. I'm an axolotl. I've shattered before, but I'm still here. And I believe you can be too. When humans first brought me into a lab, they thought I was just a specimen, a weird salamander stuck in permanent childhood. But then, I surprised them. Not by jumping through hoops or solving equations, just by healing. I didn't need a surgeon. I didn't need painkillers. All I needed was a wound and time. They watched me regrow an arm, then a tail, then an eye. And when I began to regenerate part of my brain, they were speechless. Some called me a biological miracle, but me, I don't see it that way. I think I'm just being honest about who I am. Humans are always searching for ways to heal. Machines, medications, algorithms. But maybe the greatest miracle, the one that really matters, has always been inside them. Dormant, buried deep in their cells. That thing you thought was lost forever. Maybe it's just asleep, waiting to be called back. I've taught people that the power to heal isn't some exclusive gift. It's the memory of life itself. And if you listen long enough, really listen, your body, your spirit, might just remember how to begin again. I'm an axolotl. I'm not an answer. I'm a question still unfolding. A lesson no one's quite finished learning. I'm disappearing, not in some poetic way, like a silhouette fading into the sunset. I mean literally disappearing. By the numbers. Back in 1998, there were around 6,000 of me per square kilometer in the lakes of Xochimilco. By 2015, just 35. And now, no one really knows how many of us are still silently swimming beneath the dark, heavy waters. The strange thing is, while I've been teaching humans how to regrow what's been lost, I've been losing parts of myself. The lake I was born in, it's barely a lake now, just a network of shallow, polluted canals, clogged with garbage, chemical runoff, and invasive fish dumped in for someone's idea of fun. What was once the Venice of the Aztec world is now a place where I hide in shadows, where bus horns drown out the sound of water. Have you ever felt that? Felt like the place you once called home doesn't feel like home anymore? Like the air has changed? Like the ground beneath you no longer knows your name? I live with that feeling every single day. And here's the irony. I'm vanishing in the wild, but thriving in labs, aquariums, and TikTok. People raise me in glass tanks. They edit my colors. They put bows on me, give me names, film reaction videos when I eat. I've become an internet mascot. A cute little pet. But no one asks, where did it come from? Or worse, are there any left out there? I don't hate it. Honestly, I don't. Maybe those videos helped people discover I even exist. But sometimes I wish you'd remember that I once had an entire world. A freshwater kingdom. A story that began in sunlight and now fades quietly into shadow. I'm an axolotl. And if someday you no longer see me, Don't assume I'm gone. Maybe I'm just waiting for someone gentle enough to save what's still good in me. And maybe in you too. If you've listened this far, thank you. Really. Not many people sit still long enough to hear the whisper of a creature at the bottom of a murky canal. But you stayed. And because of that, there's something I need to say. I know you live in a world that feels nothing like mine, where no one magically grows back limbs, where everything must be earned, where you have to prove you're good enough, fast enough, beautiful enough, strong enough. A world where if you break, you're expected to stitch yourself up with something called stability, even if you're still splitting apart inside. I don't live in that world. I live underwater, quiet, still, but I watch, and I see you. So tired sometimes you can't even cry, smiling through filters you don't believe, wondering, am I falling behind? I don't have the answers, but I do have this. You don't need to shine to be seen. You don't need to change to be loved. I shine. Not for attention. I shine because I am that light. I don't try to stand out among the fish. I just exist, as honestly as nature made me. And if you've ever felt like you don't fit, like you're too weird, too soft, too much, know this. There's a little creature out here who was once cursed for refusing to grow up the way the world demanded. And that creature, me, is still here, still regrowing what's been broken, still believing that somewhere out there, someone is listening. You don't need to become anyone else. You just need to not give up on yourself. I'm the axolotl, and I believe the light inside you, no matter how faint, is still enough to brighten a place I once called home.